Join me on a literary journey through southern England by bicycle. Hello, I'm Tim and I have too many books. This is a little bit of an experiment. There are a great number of novels in the world where people set out on journeys, and sometimes you can map those journeys, and we're going to try that here. The book I'm going to talk about is Wheels of Chance by H.G. Wells. This is an early H.G. Wells book written in 1895, where a draper's assistant and amateur cyclist called Mister Hoopdriver decides to go on his 10-day holiday on a cycling tour through southern England. We're going to join him on this tour and go to the places he goes to, meet the people he meets, and there may be a few spoilers, although I will try to not spoil the whole ending. The animated background you'll see behind me is taken from Google Earth Studio, and also the route that I've taken is taken from Google Maps route planner, so it might not always be entirely accurate and might take some shortcuts and also make a lot of twists and turns. Mister Hoopdriver starts his journey by travelling up Putney Hill, getting onto Kingston Hill and Kingston Vale. He's not terribly good at cycling at this time. He's got lots of bruises on his calves where the pedals have hit him, and passers-by tend to comment on his lack of skill. All the same, he makes it down into Kingston-upon-Thames and then onto Surbiton, where he catches sight of another cyclist, a lady in grey, and she is wearing rationals. These are basically bloomers which allow women to cycle. While he is struck by the lady in grey, he continues on his way. H.G. Wells included quite a lot of pubs where Mister Hoopdriver stops at along his way, and his first stop is at the Marquis of Grandby in Esher. He continues along the road from Esher towards Cobham, where he encounters another cyclist who is dressed in brown, just like Mister Hoopdriver is. His bike seems to have a few problems. They exchange a few words, and Mister Hoopdriver carries on. But not too far ahead, he encounters again the lady in grey, who seems to have been waving at him. Although she's not expecting him, she's clearly expecting the other cyclist in the brown suit. Proceeding through Ripley, he eventually reaches Guildford, where he's going to spend his first night. He spends quite a lot of time wandering around Guildford, and he encounters again the lady in grey and her companion, the cyclist in the brown suit. They appear to be brother and sister, although he's not sure. What chiefly worries him is that he does seem to be dogging their footsteps. He's haunting them. He just keeps bumping into them, and he's feeling rather awkward about this. On day 2, he sets out from Guildford and heads down through Shalford, Bramley, and over to Godalming. When he's just outside Milford and planning to take the road that might take him down to Portsmouth, he encounters the cycling couple once again. The lady in grey appears to be a little upset. He stops to ask if there's anything they need, and he is somewhat rudely rebuffed. He decides not to head immediately down to Portsmouth, but to head to Haslemere and then on towards Petworth. Although he's heading towards Petworth, he doesn't actually get there. He passes through Northchapel and then gets turned around a lot, goes through twisty and turny lanes. Google Maps takes a bit more of a direct route here. He eventually finds himself in a place called Easebourne, just outside the town of Midhurst. He decides to spend the night at Midhurst and then carry on the next morning. But once again, he encounters the couple. The man, who appears to be called Mr. Beaumont, the brother, harangues him because he thinks that Mister Hoopdriver is an investigator sent either by the brother's wife or Miss Milton's stepmother. Mr. Hoopdriver clearly thinks something wrong is going on here, and he's not entirely certain of the honesty of the man, although the young woman, the lady in grey, Miss Milton, appears to be perfectly innocent. He determines, therefore, to follow them the next day. As they head out in the morning, he tracks them to Cocking, where they go into an inn. He hides a little way away and finds himself falling asleep, by which time they have left the inn and are heading down towards Goodwood and Chichester. He races on to find them, passing through Singleton, where the station for Goodwood Racecourse is, and then on to Lavant, before eventually reaching Chichester. Chichester is quite a big city, and he loses their spoor here. But after checking in a number of inns, he notices a telltale sign of their tyre tracks heading down the road towards Bognor. In Bognor, we switch to the point of view of the couple. He is called Mr. Bechamel. Don't think of him as a saucy chap. He's trying to seduce the poor young lady, Miss Jessie Milton. At the Hotel Vicuna in Bognor, Jessie Milton discovers that Mr. Bechamel wants his wicked way with her, and she struggles to work out how she can escape. She is an unaccompanied woman, and he is going to easily overhaul her as she tries to get away. Fortunately, into her life comes Mister Hoopdriver, who has tracked them all the way to Bognor, and he offers his help. Jessie and Mr. Hoopdriver escape into the night, with Mr. Hoopdriver purloining Mr. Bechamel's bicycle. And while this makes Mr. Bechamel unable to pursue them, they don't know this, and they head off on a cross-country route until they reach Chichester Harbour. From this spot overlooking Chichester Harbour, Jessie and Mr. Hoopdriver head back towards Chichester to find a hotel for the night, where he and Miss Milton will pretend to be brother and sister. At this point we lose sight completely of Mr. Bechamel. He has attempted a seduction of Miss Milton. It hasn't worked. He's going to go back to his wife, but he's probably going to enjoy himself, possibly go over to France before he does that. The action of the book switches back briefly to Surbiton, where Miss Milton's stepmother is worried about her. News has got back to her that her stepdaughter Jessie was seen cycling in the company of a young man somewhere in Midhurst. Mrs. Milton, the stepmother, is something of a novelist and has a lot of hangers-on and admirers. And together with these hangers-on and admirers, she decides to set up a search party, a rescue party, to rescue Jessie from making a fool of herself. In the morning of the fourth day, Miss Milton and Mr. Hoopdriver head out of Chichester, heading vaguely towards Fareham. Miss Milton has a governess who she thinks might be able to help her, and she's determined to write a letter to her governess and post it along their way. Her governess lives in Ringwood, near the New Forest. Meanwhile, the rescue party have arrived in Chichester. They discover that the couple had been seen heading west. So they decide to catch the train to Fareham. Then members of the party will get off at intervening stations to see if they can spot the fugitives. Our fugitives have passed through Havant and proceeded on towards Cosham, where Jessie stops to post the letter to her governess. Once they get to Fareham, they are spotted by members of the rescue party, although they don't see the rescue party. They head off up towards Botley. Just outside Botley, they are overtaken by a dog cart, driven by one of the rescue party. He calls out Jessie's name, and as he's trying to turn round, he overturns the dog cart. Miss Milton and Mr. Hoopdriver head along the road to Bishop's Waltham, now aware that the rescue party is on their trail. Passing by Bishop's Waltham, they proceed into Winchester, but decide to carry on and see how far they can get in the night, to put some distance between them and their pursuers or rescuers. They spend the night in a hotel at a place called Wallenstock. This is the only fictional place in the whole of the book. The real name of the place is Stockbridge, and for some reason H.G. Wells decides that he's going to call it Wallenstock instead. It is here where one of the locals insults Miss Milton, and Mr. Hoopdriver decides to defend her honour. There are fisticuffs, and Mr. Hoopdriver is victorious. And at this point, the next morning, we leave the couple on their way to Salisbury. Some days later, we find them in Blandford Forum. Having come here from Salisbury, they've spent a couple of days here. Mr. Hoopdriver has become increasingly worried by his relationship to Miss Milton. He's very, very attracted to her, but she's a well-brought-up, upper-class woman, fairly rich, and he's, well, just a draper's assistant who is running out of money. Although it's quite possible that Miss Milton with her education and modern ideas, might not see the class divide. Mr. Hoopdriver is very, very aware of it. He is ill-read, and he's been lying to her. He's pretended that he's, well, a gentleman. After all, that's why Jessie left with him in Bognor, because she said, "Are you a gentleman?" and he said yes. But he can't keep up the pretence. He's been spinning yarns to her. As they proceed out of Blandford Forum, and while they're on the road to Wimborne, he confesses to her that he's just a draper's assistant. She doesn't seem to mind, but does recognise that there is a gulf between them, and a gulf of sort of understanding, of life of the mind. But she does think he can improve, and encourages him to do so. On from Wimborne, they reach Ringwood. They go to a hotel where Miss Milton has asked her governess to send a reply to her letter, but there is no reply. While Mr. Hoopdriver is waiting, he sees a bicycle shop, and outside the bicycle shop is a rather conspicuous device. It is a tandem tricycle, and there's something ominous about it. It has the air of a Chekhov's gun about it. They proceed on towards Stoney Cross, perhaps heading towards Lyndhurst. But as they approach Stoney Cross, they look behind them and see some cyclists and a dog cart behind them, and a couple on the dreaded tandem tricycle. They try to outrun it, but the tandem tricycle is the nemesis of velocipedes. They will never outrun it. As they reach the Rufus Stone, they realise it is hopeless. They're going to have to give up and allow their pursuers to catch up with them. They retire to a local hotel and await their fate. This is where we leave them. There is more of the story, of course, more of a finish, but I'll leave you out to read the book. I definitely encourage you to read the book. And I also encourage you to do what I'm not fit enough or brave enough or bicycle owning enough to do, and that is to recreate this rather wonderful journey. I find this book delightful. It is a lot of fun and prefigures quite a lot of H.G. Wells's later work, whether or not he's talking about draper's assistants in books like Mr. Kipps or The History of Mr. Polly, or even the class concerns in his science fiction books or other writing. Please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this. Hopefully, if this works, I'll give it another go. Now, there are many, many famous book journeys out there. I've used a fairly obscure book to start off with because, as I said, this is a bit of an experiment. I hope you've enjoyed it, though.